So, let's get into the really heartbreaking science of why your old dog has suddenly become your constant shadow. It's a question so many of us who love senior dogs end up asking, right? This behavior, it seems to ramp up so much in their later years. Is it just a habit they picked up, or is there something deeper going on? What are we really seeing when they stand up, often with a little groan, just to follow us from one room to the next?
Most of us, we just figure they're bored, or maybe they've just gotten a little clingy in their old age. But veterinary neuroscience, it tells a completely different story. What looks like a simple habit is actually a profound response to a world that is fundamentally changing for them. It's driven by senses that are failing, a memory that's fading, and a bond with you that has become more critical than ever before.
To really understand why they're doing this, we first have to understand their world. And for a senior dog, that world, well, it's getting quieter and a lot fuzzier every single day. The senses they've relied on their entire lives are starting to let them down.
And what's really staggering is just how common this is. Look at this. Research shows that by the time a dog is 10 years old, 65% of them have measurable hearing loss. By age 13, that number jumps to over 80%. But it's not just that things get quiet. It's what gets quiet that changes everything.
So here's the thing. Dogs lose the high-frequency sounds first. This means they can still hear that low, deep rumble of a garbage truck outside just fine. But the softer, higher-pitched sounds, like your footsteps on the carpet, the jingle of your keys, or even the sound of your voice from another room, those are the very first things to go. The sounds that used to tell them exactly where you were, they're just disappearing.
And it's not just their hearing. By age 11, nearly 70% of dogs get that cloudy kind of bluish haze in their eyes. It's called lenticular sclerosis. It doesn't usually cause total blindness, but it's like someone smeared a thin layer of Vaseline over a camera lens. All the edges in the world get softer, shadows start to blend together, and their depth perception gets worse, especially when the lights are low.
So just try to imagine that for a second. Your world is getting quieter and blurrier. The familiar cues you've always relied on are just gone. And that confusing new reality, they aren't being needy. They are not being clingy. They are following the one clear, reliable, and constant anchor they have left in their entire world, you.
But sensory decline, that's really only half the story. Because at the same time their external world is fading, their internal world, their own mind, is also becoming a really unfamiliar and confusing place.
We're talking about something called canine cognitive dysfunction, or CCD. And it's basically the dog version of Alzheimer's disease. It's caused by the same kinds of plaque buildup and changes in the brain that we see in humans, and it directly messes with their memory, their ability to learn new things, and even their basic sense of where they are in a room.
And how common it is, it's honestly shocking. As you can see here, between ages 11 and 12, about 28% of dogs show signs of it, but just a few years later, between 15 and 16, that number just skyrockets to 68%. This is happening to the vast majority of our older dogs.
And here it is. Here is the direct link. A study found that dogs in just the early stages of CCD spend 73% more time physically close to their owners. It's one of the very first and most telling behavioral signs. They're not just looking for a pat on the head. They are trying to navigate a world that doesn't make sense anymore. Think about it like this. Your dog used to have this perfect mental map of the house. They knew where the water bowl was, which door leads to the backyard. But with CCD, that internal GPS starts to fail, and the house they've known their whole life becomes a confusing maze. So what do? They follow back on the only navigation strategy that still works, following the person who is the map.
Okay, so we've talked about the senses and the mind, but what does all of this actually feel like for your dog? This is where the science gets really personal, because their whole emotional reality is changing too. This right here reveals something fascinating that researchers call the stress paradox. When they measure the stress hormone cortisol, they found that senior dogs, even when they're just resting peacefully at home, have baseline levels that are 30 to 50% higher than younger dogs. They are living in a constant low-level state of stress and anxiety.
And here is exactly why they follow you. Your presence is their medicine. The research shows that just by having you in the room, a senior dog's cortisol levels can drop by over 20% in just 15 minutes. You are, quite literally, their peace. They follow you because being near you is the only thing that makes the world feel a little less scary.
And this leads to something that scientists call territorial compression. It sounds complicated, but it just means that as dogs get older, their whole world physically shrinks.
GPS studies have shown that by age 12, a senior dog spends 80% of their day in just 2 or 3 spots. And those spots, they're not random. They're the couch where you watch TV, the kitchen while you're cooking, and the spot right next to your bed. Their world has collapsed down to the smallest possible area that still includes you.
So, knowing all this, the fading senses, the confusing mind, that constant underlying stress, what can you actually do? This isn't about finding a cure. It's about providing support. And the science gives us some really clear, practical ways to improve their quality of life.
First off, you got to be a detective. A sudden increase in following you around can also be an early sign of chronic pain, like arthritis. Dogs are masters at hiding pain, but they will absolutely seek out comfort. So if you see stiffness, if they hesitate at the stairs, or if you notice new things like disorientation, it's time for a vet visit. Please don't just write it off as them getting old. And these 5 things, they can make a world of difference. Keep a strict routine. Predictability gives their failing memory an anchor to hold on to. Increase gentle physical contact. It's a proven stress reducer. Make their world safer with things like night lights and non-slip rugs. Use simple sniffing games to keep their mind engaged. And please, talk to your vet about pain management. It can be absolutely life-changing for them.
You know, it's easy to get frustrated sometimes by that constant presence right under your feet, to feel a little bit suffocated even. But it is so important to remember what this behavior truly represents in this final chapter of their life.
This phase, this constant shadowing, it doesn't last forever. One day, you'll walk into the kitchen and they won't get up to follow. And on that day, or maybe the day after they're gone, you will truly understand the weight of this quote. You would give anything to trip over them just one more time.
And this isn't just a feeling, it's actually a documented phenomenon. In a survey of people who had recently lost a senior dog, the #1 thing they said they missed, it wasn't playing fetch, it wasn't even going on walks, it was the shadow. That quiet, constant presence that was always there, assuring them they were never truly alone in the house.
And here is the most beautiful part of all the science. Researchers have found that even in dogs with advanced cognitive dysfunction, that oxytocin response, the love hormone, when they interact with their favorite person, it remains completely intact. The cognitive mat of the house might fail, but the emotional bond, that does not.
So the next time you feel that familiar presence right behind you, just remember what it really means. You are their map through a confusing world. You are their anchor in a fading one. And you are their peace. Knowing all of this, how does it feel to be, quite literally, the center of their entire universe? If this explainer changed how you see your senior dog, subscribe to the channel and share your dog's name in the comments. I'd really love to hear who's following you around the house right now.